So that looks like everybody from now. So we'll go ahead and take off. I want to be conscious of everybody's time, and I want to give Michael enough time to present. So, as everyone knows, this is presented by or hosted by the Bellwether magazine. My name is Michael Garrison. I am the executive editor of the magazine. Most everyone knows me as Michael G. So we'll just stick with that. Works for me, works for everybody else, so that's fine. Tanya Brockett is the managing editor of the magazine, and the magazine is for entrepreneurs and business people. We want to provide a space for you to have a leverage tool to use to gain an elevated position in your circles. So that's what it is. It's free for contributors. It's free for subscribers, and we don't have any of those pesky ads that everyone sees in every other magazine on the planet. Okay, so we encourage you to participate. We encourage you to contribute. I will put, once Michael starts, I will put in the chat a couple of links that everybody can use in order to submit and understand what our submission standards look like. So everyone on this call and anyone else is welcome to contribute to the magazine. Many of you read it. Many of you have recognized that not everybody in the magazine is a Bellwether member, and that's perfectly fine. We are not restrained or restricted by the same rules and guidelines that the organization has. So we encourage everybody, your friends, family, neighbors, anybody in business that needs a tool to share value with other people, we encourage them to use our magazine as that tool. Okay, so many people, especially if you were in New York, have heard of the Elgamy effect. This is a principle that the magazine subscribes to, and I think we should all subscribe to it. It is one of Bellwether's laws, and I think that it would behoove you to take advantage of the Elgamy effect. So, what is Elgamy? Elgimi is Elgamy. Elgimi is the acronym for education. All right, that's what the E stands for. Continual growth should be exactly what every entrepreneur should be doing. We should all be continuing to grow, not only in our personal and industry knowledge, but in entrepreneurship and business knowledge. I always go back. I talk, everyone's heard me tell this plumber story. Just because Joe's the greatest plumber in the world, when he starts his own business, he's probably going to fail because he's not a business person. He's a plumber. Okay. So that's what we want to take away from the entrepreneurial and business world is what each and every person should strive to take advantage of and learn. Let's get rid of these otters. I apologize. I got a lot of people coming in, and probably everyone's hearing them. Okay, so leverage tools. That's exactly what this is. This is a leverage tool. Podcasts, television shows, magazines, anywhere that you can present and share your value to other people so that you can point to it and people start recognizing that. LinkedIn, social media, all the different places out there are leverage tools. So we want you to be able to. Sorry, Maury, I had to mute you. We want you to be able to share your talent and ideas, but we want you to understand that you must stand out. If you're not standing out, you're just another person in that big noisy world out there. There's 8 billion people on the planet. I'm surprised we can hear anything. Okay, so you have to stand out, otherwise it's no good. Gains. Once you have that education, once you start getting that leverage position and starting to establish that, it's going to be a certain period of time to where you are going to have to be adopting new metrics. Okay, but patience and persistence is essential. If you don't have any patience and you think it's going to be overnight, it's not. It's just not going to be an overnight thing. You're not going to be recognized by masses overnight. Okay, so there's about a to 9 month period where you're going to be gaining traction, adopting new metrics, implementing new systems, processes, and all that different stuff. Influence. One big thing about influence is you can't get influence. Influence must be assigned to you by other people. It's an accumulation of trust, authenticity, and value that you deliver over a period of time to where people say, I'm going to assign that person some influence over me, and they start taking your advice or subscribing to whatever it is that you have. Okay. Monetize properly. I'm sure we're all monetizing, trying to pay the bills, keep the lights on, the doors open, all that stuff. What I'm talking about monetizing properly is an entirely different metric. Okay. It's not just revenue, it's about realizing the full potential of your endeavors. Okay. Yes, revenue should be a big portion of that. But if your endeavors, say you're in a nonprofit, you should not be striving to keep the doors open and the lights on. You should be striving to make that impact and affect change in whatever it is that you're attempting to affect change. Okay. Then the last thing is impact. Creating an impact isn't just about transactions, it's about transforming lives or industries or fields or whatever that looks like. Okay. You need to strive for that impact. Well, and you can't have impact without monetizing properly. You'll never monetize properly without a certain amount of influence. You're never going to get the influence unless you have the leverage tools that allow you to gain the influence. And without education, really it's all about nothing, right? So just wanted to share that and kick it off before we get going. Everybody is welcome to use the magazine. It doesn't mean just because you submit an article doesn't mean that you're going to be accepted. We do have editors, we do have people that go through that, look at everything, and I just lay the magazine out. I create it. I don't say who will and who won't be in it or what content will be accepted or not. So just keep that in mind. But we do encourage you to submit it. So Michael Fleischner is our presenter today. He's a marketer, author, speaker, and a native New Jerseyan, correct? And entrepreneur. He's got more than 20 years real world experience in the SEO and marketing space. He's been featured on the Today Show, ABC World News, and other major media outlets. He's also the founder of Big Fin SEO. So look that up. All right. So the big thing about Michael, he's going to share with us a little bit. If you're not on Google's good side, you're nowhere. People don't Bing things. People don't Yahoo things. People don't Facebook things. They Google things. All right. So if you're not on Google's good side, you're nowhere. So he's going to be presenting to us today, Conquering the Digital Frontier, a no-nonsense guide for the entrepreneur. And without further ado, welcome Michael Fleischner.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you all for being here. And just in terms of housekeeping, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions. Feel free to jump in if you have any. We do have a limited time today. So if I don't get to your question, drop it in the chat. I will personally follow up with each and every question and make sure we have answers for you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to jump in. And what I always like to do when I speak to a group is get a sense of how familiar they are with the topic. So in the chat, I'd like everyone right now on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being I sort of have heard of SEO, but don't really know what it is. And 5 is you could probably be doing this presentation right now. Just put in a number between 1 and 5 so I can get a sense of where everybody is. Excellent. A lot of 2s and 3s, a couple of 1s. All right, wonderful. So what I'd like to do today is really dispel some myths around SEO. There are always a lot of questions. What is it? Unfortunately, in the SEO industry, there are scams and people who just are not honest about it, and others who really know what they're doing and make an impact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really start with the importance of SEO for your website and personal brand. And Michael, this is something I know you and I have talked about, but I've chatted with others. And, it's not just about getting your website ranked. Sometimes it's about your reputation and your online reputation. And you are what Google says you are, right? Oftentimes people might have a meeting with you. Well, they're Googling you before the meeting. So we're going to talk about an introduction to SEO, how it's relevant today. More importantly, we're going to talk about how do you use search engine optimization to amplify your brand and online visibility. And then talk about the potential for organic growth versus paid. So these are some things we're going to be talking about, and I think you'll find it really interesting. Now, Michael said earlier, right, it's all about Google. We know it's all about Google, and I will defend that only because something like 96% of all searches are on Google. That doesn't mean that Bing doesn't drive other engines, but in terms of people trying to find things online, they're going to Google. So what's different about Google today? Well, Google's evolved. It continues to evolve. We know they make about 26 major updates a year. Actually, they say up to 200 a year. However, the majority are really focused around some of these key factors that we look for from an SEO perspective. So one of the big things is just location. You may or may not know it, but this search I actually did on a desktop, and it's pulling up local search results based on where I am, my IP address. It's also doing things like inserting what we call schema, which could be definitions or images or videos. It's also doing things like pulling in authoritative sources like Wikipedia or other websites. And it's simulating kind of what you may imagine you might ask. So here I just typed in Bellwether, and it's saying, what's another word for Bellwether? What's the meaning of Bellwether? So on and so forth. So these are called related questions, or people also ask. And the other thing you may notice is when we talk about organic results or traditional organic results, they only come in at the very bottom here. You can see Merriam-Webster has the #1 listing. So they call this up here position 0. And ultimately, that's where we want to be. Not even in the first spot anymore. We want to be in position 0. The only other thing I'll mention before I jump to the next slide is up at the very top, under that search bar where it says Bellwether, you're also going to notice images, definitions, synonym, in a sentence, videos. Most people don't notice this. It may not be on everyone's browser. Obviously, I'm a heavy user, so I integrate a number of these things. But this is Google's way of showing us their cards. It's like, Dan Vega always talks about building a business, right? You have to begin with the end in mind. And this is how we decode Google. We look at other things that they're recommending to us or they're suggesting to us, and that can help us really design our content and other things that we want to rank. So this is one of my favorite comics. Basically, where's the safest place to hide a dead body? And it's on page 2 of Google. Okay. In my house, the safest place to store money is under the vacuum cleaner. Same kind of idea. There are places that people never look. And on Google, if you're really not on the first page, and I would even say in the top 5 results, people are going elsewhere. So here are some key stats or some data to keep in mind. Okay. 93% of online experiences start with a search engine. So the other day, I wanted to pick up some new shirts at Banana Republic. My spelling isn't great, so I went to the search bar. I typed Banana Republic. So there, again, market research of one, but I knew the website I wanted to go to. I wasn't typing in the URL as a .com. I was actually searching for it. So this has become a pretty common behavior or search behavior. 61% of Google searches are mobile. Actually, I've seen some stats where it's 63, 64%. So a lot of people, my agency does a little web development, and we're building more mobile first websites where it's really built as a mobile site. And that's because that's where the majority of people are. The other thing that people kind of lose sight of is how search strings or search queries have evolved and changed. A a lot of people are asking where to buy things. They're looking for coffee near me. They may even be looking for an executive coach near me. Not that Zoom isn't great, but this local search flavor is more popular than ever. And the other thing too is, and this is something we do in our training programs, people are always about creating more to try to get more rankings. But oftentimes it's as simple as having some data, looking at what is currently performing well, and then amplifying that. And again, this is something, if you have a blog, let's say you're an active blogger and you're producing a lot of content, and we're going to talk about how to structure that content to show up in organic search results. But one of the things that you can do is you can look back at all the data from your previous posts and identify those that have done well and maybe repurpose them, build them out, drive some new links. There are a variety of strategies, but sometimes repurposing content is the way to go. And then the last thing I'll mention is everyone wants to rank for short terms like executive coach, right? Or I don't know, spiritual healing. But oftentimes that is a red ocean strategy. Everybody's trying to rank for those keywords. And my ask is why? Why wouldn't you find maybe something like best spiritual healing coach, which may be less competitive, but have either the same number of searches or maybe just fewer searches, but is much easier to acquire? And that's where the strategy comes into play when we talk about SEO and organic search. The other thing to keep in mind is SEO is personal. It's not like it used to be. So your search behavior is customized to you. So the more that you do searches on Google, the more that you interact with content, whether you're clicking, your location, things that you're viewing, Google is taking all of that into consideration. We call it click behavior, and they're customizing your results based on what you're seeing. And as a result, when people try to do something around SEO, they'll say to their buddy, oh, when I search for so-and-so, it's not coming up. Well, it might not come up for you, but it might come up for the next person. So we have to think about, what does that mean? What are the implications of that? And ultimately, it means that you really need to rely on some tools to give you a more objective view of what you're physically seeing, right? So just because you see it on your screen doesn't mean it is the same for everyone. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, customize your approach. And it looks like we've got a question. So Dominique, can you jump in?
Hey, yeah, just sorry, real quick. So if this is not my field of expertise at all. If I'm aware that each person's search, the click behavior changes how the results show up. If that's the case, how is it that SEO works like at all?
It's a great question. And keep in mind that when we talk about SEO and search engine optimization, it's really the framework or the structure by which results are served. So the goal ultimately is to understand that structure in a way that allows you to get your result to show up for the people who are searching for it. And then to make it attractive enough for them to click and interact with, because that will beget more of those same results. So by understanding the structure and really the rules, again, it's like, for those of you who were in New York, and I see some friendly faces here, Dan was talking about, if there were 30 rules and you knew 6, like how well are you going to do? But if you knew 12, 14, 16, 18, 22 of the rules, you're going to do better than everybody else. And the same is true with SEO. And that's what we're going to cover here. So Dominique, that is a great question, because sometimes people look at it as, well, it's so subjective. I'll never get ranked for X, Y, and Z. But some of the strategies I'm going to share today really help create that foundation and allow you to be in the same room with those people who you want to get in front of. Great question. Thank you. All right. So customize your approach. One of the keys here, and one of the reasons why I'm kind of showing this, and I'm fading it because, again, there's nothing to buy here. I'm not selling anything. This is really just for an example. And that example is to say that results aren't just web pages anymore. They're different things. They're photos, they're images, they're books you've written, they're podcasts that you host. They're all of these different things. So think multimodal when it comes to SEO. It's not just about getting a web page ranked. It can be a variety of things. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail. All right. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and consider the hat I wear, right? I'm predominantly SEO, but I've been around marketing for over 20 years. And I'll be the first to admit that SEO is only part of the overall equation. So you want to have contextual reference and say, look, organic is extremely important. Why? Because if I can get out there and people can see me, great. Additionally, we know that SEO results are more, or organic results are more trusted than paid results, so on and so forth. But it is one piece of the overall puzzle. So one of the things we like to recommend certainly is you can amplify some of what you're doing with SEO with paid search. If you notice here on the left, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 listings are actually paid. That's Google Ads. So if you were trying to compete for executive coaching programs, you could be the best in the world at organic search and SEO, and you're going to be in the 5th position. So that's something to keep in mind. The other is remarketing display. You know, SEO, especially getting listings and search results, can only do so much from a branding perspective, right? Sorry, I lost my display there. It can only do so much from a branding perspective. So things like remarketing display ads, you know, based on users' intent, which is part of paid, that's something you want to consider. And just a couple more, obviously being active on social. And the last one I put on here is actually email. So in addition to SEO, organic, I'd like to open up your minds to say, okay, if that's only part of the marketing online puzzle, what are some of the other pieces? Definitely paid, definitely remarketing, certainly social, but I also put in email. And the reason I do this, you know, I have the fortunate opportunity to work across more than 40 industries, probably 1,000 plus websites in terms of SEO. And I'm seeing a correlation between the use of Google products like email to not only customizing your search results, but also in some instances, search engine rankings. And it gets a little complicated, so I'm not going to go into depth here. I can have a separate conversation with you. But the whole point is SEO is not just about SEO. It's about being aware of all the different ways that you can start to make an impact online. All right. So in the beginning, I asked everyone, what's your knowledge of SEO? How do you feel about SEO? Rank it from 0 to 5. And I saw a lot of 2s and 3s. The reason I see that commonly is because SEO can be really complicated, but it doesn't have to be. And it doesn't have to be if you have a structure to follow on a consistent basis. So one of the things that I've done over the past 12 years is to put together a process that works, and it works whether you're a small little mom and pop or a Fortune 1000 company. And that's what I'm going to share with you, this 5-step SEO process. And the nice thing about it is it's really simple to understand. Some of the pieces or components within it can get pretty complex, but the framework doesn't change. And it doesn't matter where you are. Maybe you've had a little SEO work done on your site already. Maybe you've launched a brand new site and you're starting from scratch. Each of us should follow this 5-step process, and how long it takes really all depends on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to lay out the 5-step process here. Then we're going to just hit on some highlights of each of those 5 areas. And then we're pretty much going to wrap this all up. Maybe we've got time for a couple of questions. And then I've got a little gift in the spirit of abundant exchange to give you. And then we'll go from there. All right. So the 5-step SEO stack. It starts with foundational SEO. This is like building a house. We're going to pour the basement, and we're going to do it with concrete and rebar so you can build as high as you want to go. In addition to, once we do the foundation, we're going to lay on keyword research, and hopefully I can dispel what you think that is, because I look at it a little differently. And once we have foundational and keyword research, which is kind of giving us the map of what we're building, then we can do what's called technical SEO. And the cool thing is there are plenty of tools out there that will really help you. Some are free even, which I'll share with you. Some are paid. But in my business, we use these tools to really amplify all of our SEO work. So we have foundational keyword research, technical, on-page SEO, and content optimization. That means what you write, what you produce, the videos you create. Are they optimized to show up in search results? Because they could be really great, but it's the kind of thing that if no one sees them or hears them, did it really happen? And once we've done all of those pieces, the last thing we add to our stack here is off-page SEO. And off-page SEO really comes down to link building, essentially. So we're going to talk about what that means, how to do it. I'm going to actually show you some really powerful ways to get some quality links to your site. And, again, we can look at this as an overly complex process, but really it's like taking candy from a baby. So I don't know how many of you had this little toy when you were a kid, but it's all about stacking the donuts. And that's what we do here. Because see, the mistake that a lot of people make, even if they know these steps, whether it's outlined for them or it's intuitive, they jump around because of a shiny object. They want to create on-page content, and that's where they're focused. But if you haven't done the first few steps of foundational SEO, keyword research, and technical SEO, that article, that blog post is never going to show. I virtually guarantee it. So this is the 5-step process. I'm going to walk you through it now. And keep in mind that you have to start at step 1 instead of jumping around, okay? All right, so foundational SEO is really the basis, as I talked about, the foundation of what we want to do and what we need to do in order to build as high as we want. And foundational SEO really begins with what I call an asset plan. And don't try to find me in this photo. I wish I were. It looks like these people are having fun. But the reason I do this is, even if you're like a little local gym, you got to think about what are the assets that you currently have or that you can build. And then once you understand those assets and think about those assets, then you can use Google to promote them, right? Or have people find them. So this is an exercise we always go through with our clients. And it's really interesting because some have more resources than they thought they had. Others have fewer resources. But those who are successful, especially if you're trying to amplify your own brand, really take the time to say, oh, I've got a book, I've got a white paper, I have an infographic that I created. Oh, I have this video over here, because this is not just a game of going deep. It's also a game of going wide and building that online reputation for you, your brand, and your business. So even if you get nothing else out of this presentation, I encourage each of you to do a little Post-it. I'm big on the Post-its. I know Dr. Dan and I joke about it all the time, but put a Post-it down and say, find all of my assets, because that's really where you want to start when it comes to foundational SEO. The other is a Google Business Profile. I hope everyone is familiar with Google Business. It used to be called Google My Business. About a year ago, they made the change to Google Business Profile. And I can tell you, working with even friends who are coaches, they're like, well, it's just me. I'm more of a consultant. I don't know that I'm not a business, or whatever story they tell me. I say, I don't care. Go get a Google Business Profile. It's absolutely free. It is a billboard that you control. So imagine wanting to promote your business. You're driving along the same highway day in, day out, and you see a bunch of billboards. Well, what if you owned one of those billboards and you could change it whenever you want? You'd probably want to do it. And in fact, you would pay for it. Well, you don't have to pay for this. It's completely free. You can just Google how to create a Google Business Profile. If you weren't sure how to fill it out, go to ChatGPT and say, give me everything I need to create my Google Business Profile. It'll actually grab information that's available online and pull it in and build it more or less for you. You still have to go in and create it. But the reason I'm saying this is it gives you an opportunity to showcase yourself and or your business online. It enhances local visibility, but it actually does one thing further, which is Google's all about a consistent user experience. So let's say you go and you get a speaking engagement and you're doing the Ignite conference out in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they post something about you. Well, Google, in order to rank that, they're going to compare it against other things about you across the internet. So again, this gives you another check mark that says, yeah, Michael Fleischner is Michael Fleischner. I have the right Michael Fleischner. Here are other pictures of Michael Fleischner. This must all be about Michael Fleischner. So we're going to promote him. And it's not just about the promotion, it's also about engagement. So when you create your Google business profile, think about, am I putting up images that people will want to engage with? Am I asking questions and answers and doing things that will encourage engagement? And on the back end of this, it actually gives you data. So people say, well, I'm not a local business. I'm international. Great. What do you know about your customers? And what I can tell you is what you find from your Google business profile will help inform the things that your customers are interested in, what they engage in, so on and so forth. All right. So this is extremely important. Again, another takeaway, tangible takeaway, don't just create a list of assets, talk about and promote your assets through Google Business. All right. And just a quick reminder, fill out everything. Fill out everything. Take the time. They walk you through. It's not at all complicated, but the more complete and comprehensive your Google business profile is, the better you will rank locally. Couple of other things I'm just going to kind of highlight and skip through. They're a little more technical, but the reason why I typically win at SEO is because I know more rules than everyone else. One of those rules is using Google Search Console. Google Search Console is a free tool anyone can use. You just go to search.google.com/search-console, and there you can register your website. Why would you want to do that? Well, because this is how Google views your website. And if you know how Google's looking at it, well, you can help improve search results because they're going to tell you what's wrong with your site. Absolutely free. You don't need an SEO to do this. You don't need thousands of dollars. You can go out here, register, and start to get those insights. The other thing you can do is you can upload a sitemap. Why would you want to do that? Well, now you're telling Google, not only am I here, but here are the most important pages on my website or blog. So again, we are really focusing on those foundational pieces that will allow us to shoot like a rocket. All right. Something we're going to talk about in a couple of slides is page experience. So people always ask me, hey, Mike, how can I get top rankings on Google? And my answer is always the same, which is page experience. And the reason I say page experience is because Google, we have seen over the last really 2 years, is giving preferential treatment to websites and web pages that have a strong user experience, so known as UX, right? How people interact with it, how quickly it loads, how quickly they can interact with different images. And this is actually in here, you guys will notice something just down at the bottom. It says Core Web Vitals. That will tell you what both page experience and the user experience looks like. So again, all free and all something that will help kind of foundationally identify where you have gaps and what you can do to improve. All right, the last is Google Analytics. I won't spend any time on this. You should know how people interact with your website. Why? Because if you could take a small little insight away, like what piece of content gets the most views on my site, then I'd say create 10 articles like that. But most people either don't have Google Analytics on their site or they never look at it. So again, I'm not going to spend time on it, but it is a foundational SEO item. Okay, so we've done the foundation. Let's start building the house. That's a lot more fun, quite honestly. And there are a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to show you what I think is a pretty simple yet highly effective way to do keyword research that I guarantee you is different than how 98% of people do it, if they do it at all. All right. Now, keep in mind, too, that there's a difference between keyword research for advertising, and keyword research for organic. Now, this chart on the right, it's going to be difficult to see. I realize the chart is small. So I'm going to annotate a little bit here. But if you look here, you're going to see something called CPC. This stands for cost per click. And the keyword I put in here, I think, was business consulting. Okay. And you can see, and this is volume. This is how many searches per month there are on a particular keyword phrase. So this is small business consulting services. 1,000 people type that into Google every month. Okay. We know that factually. You don't have to guess. We know Google shares that information. We also know if we wanted to buy the keyword, the average cost per click is $11.50, which is kind of expensive, right? So the question ultimately is, well, how difficult is it to get that to show up in paid search results? And they give it a 31. Now, this is based on a scale of 0 to 100. So 31 it's competitive, but not that competitive. But if you look at this, which is kind of in code, right, SD, basically what that means is that is your SEO difficulty, and it shows 57, okay? So knowing nothing about kind of how this works, but just looking at this chart, if I was to go after something from a paid perspective, from an organic perspective, from an SEO perspective, so I'm looking at this column, which keyword would I go after without spending more than 2 seconds on this chart? Would be whatever's in green. Why? Because green means go. Look at the competitiveness. It's the least competitive term out of all of the terms here. Now, of course, I have to look in a little more depth. I have to see what the search volume is. I have to see, well, if it was only $1 a click, maybe I would just buy the term, but it's actually $9 a click, so on and so forth. So my whole point in sharing this with you is that when we look at different ways to do keyword research, you could spend a lot of time trying to figure it all out, but there are tools out there that really do the work for you. So the name of this tool in particular is Ubersuggest. They do have a free version. I think you can do like one set of keywords or something. So hopefully that will suffice for you and your business. But it's a great place to start, especially if you're focused on organic keywords and organic search results, because organic works differently than paid. We used to use all the paid tools like the Google Ads keyword tool to try to figure out what keywords we want to use. And it's a different game. It's a different ball game. So definitely take advantage of tools like this and think about potentially going after less competitive terms that are aligned, right, than you may have thought of previously. Again, we want a blue ocean strategy. Don't try to compete for small business consulting services with everybody else who's going after that term just because it has the highest search volume. I would much rather own all of Small Business Marketing Coach at 140 searches a month than 1/100th of Small Business Consulting Services at 1,000 a month. All right, so I'm just trying to seed your mindset a little differently about keyword research. The only other thing that I'll mention before I go on to the next slide is think about user intent. You really want to kind of get behind, well, if someone is typing small business consulting fees, what's their mindset? What are they looking for? And if that's something that you think, oh, I could compete on that, great, but make sure that you're driving them to a landing page that talks about consulting fees, how they work, how you structure your fees differently from someone else. So you got to take that next step beyond just the keyword phrase itself and really get yourself into the mindset of the person who's searching. All right, technical SEO. This is really the backbone of site performance. Technical SEO really speaks to page experience, mobile optimization, a lot of the things that we do to our websites in order to make them, I'm going to say, conform to Google's rules. And I'm going to show you how I do this, kind of the shortcut I take in order to not only know that I comply, but more importantly, to know what I need to do on someone's website to get them from zero to hero. Now, the one thing that I think is a key takeaway here, at least for me, because I'm an old timer, I'm still conditioned to doing everything on the laptop. And then to me, somehow mobile is separate. But I encourage all of you, even if you want to do it right now, take out your mobile phone, look at your own website on mobile, and I guarantee you the experience is different. Now, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, more than 60%, in fact, it's closer to 2/3, are searching on mobile first. So we want to make sure that that mobile experience is dialed in, because Google is using those cues in order to influence rankings. So if you're ignoring mobile, which quite honestly, a lot of people still do, at least a lot of my clients, you're missing the boat. So if the only thing you do is change your lens and focus through the mobile lens, I guarantee you, boom, to the moon. Your results will really skyrocket. Okay, so here's my cheat code. For those of you who are making the time, I want to give you really all of the tips, tricks, and experiences you can use to transform your organic rankings. And it really starts with this tool. This tool, if you look at the very bottom of the bullet points, is called GT Metrics. GT Metrics, and I'll give you a quick story. So we do some work for Weichert. One of their divisions is Weichert Franchise. This is their arm that sells the franchises to the franchisees, and they got a great little website. In fact, on our initial discovery call, they said, Mike, we just don't get it. Weichert does great. These other sites do really great in our portfolio. But when it comes to Weichert Franchise, we're just not showing up. It's everybody else. It's all the other real estate companies. And we took a look at it. We actually ran it through GT Metrics, and they got an F. Their grade was an F. And if you get an F, it's all red, like everything's red. And then we ran all of our other diagnostics, everything else, they were absolutely right. They checked out. They hit the mark on pretty much everything. There were a few things we needed to tweak, but the only place that they were suffering was on page experience. And page experience goes back to engagement. Their site was hard to engage with. You'd click on it and it would take 6 seconds to load. I'm going to be quiet for 6 seconds. You're going to see how long that takes. That's a long period of time. Okay. So what would happen? People would click on their result and they wouldn't last the 6 seconds. They went 2 or 3 and then they left and went to another website. And for those who could get to the website, the time to interact, images took forever to load. If you were on a device and tried to reorient, it was sluggish. You want to create a good user experience. So check your own website, make sure it's good. And if it can be better, apply those changes. So again, go to gtmetrics.com, run your own website and see what changes you need to make. All right, so let me pause for a second. We did the foundational items. We did the keyword research. We did the technical SEO. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on that as part of this. But now we're focused on page. And on page means, let's just use a blog post, for example. You've created a blog post. And now we want that blog post to show up in search results. So foundation, keyword research, technical SEO, they're all important. Now we want to focus on what can you do with that content to make it show up in search results. Now, this is partly technical. I'm kind of blending technical and on-page here in a moment, but this is what a typical technical site crawl looks like, and we can run this on specific content. And here you'll see on the right, we've got all these lines, and the first line in orange says meta no index. What that's telling me, and this may have been actually from Weichert's site, now that I think about it, they had content that the search engines couldn't even access. Why is that? There are a million reasons why that could be. It wasn't coded properly. They didn't allow it to be indexed. It wasn't part of their sitemap, whatever. But Google couldn't even read it. So no wonder why it wasn't showing up, right? But unless you ran a free crawl, you wouldn't know that. So meta no index URLs being too long, Google has certain parameters. Remember, we need to know the rules of the game. They want their titles to be 65 characters or less, their meta descriptions to be 155 characters or so on. There are all of these rules that if we knew the rules, we could start to win by small incremental changes. So when you're creating content, and I'm going to show you in a little bit how that content should be created, what it should look like, when you start to apply those, you'll start to see results in search engine result placements. The other thing I want to mention is just engagement. So the more engaging you can make your content, the more Google is going to increase your ranking. And a lot of people ask, well, look, I'm writing blogs about, targeted content. Great. But if it's just words, it's probably not very interesting. People probably aren't staying very long, and they're definitely not sharing it with other people. So one of the things you want to think about is, are there things you could add to your site that make it engaging? A download, a calculator, a quiz. There are all these tools that you can add and integrate into your site to make it more engaging. And if you do just one or two of those things, that can really change the game from an organic ranking perspective. The other thing is quality over quantity. So I said a minute ago that I would kind of show you what to do on page. Remember, we're in on page and content. And this is really the best example I can give. Neil Patel, in fact, some Bellwethers probably know Neil. I wouldn't be surprised or have spoken to him. He's fantastic. He really built up his agency from literally nothing. And he knows his stuff, right? He's the real deal. So we look to him often as someone who can give us some clues and see kind of how to do things effectively. And I'm just going to run this for you. So if I show you, this is just one blog post that he has on his website. And you can see, not only is it long, but he's using images, he's using samples, his headlines pop. Those are called subheads. He's integrating video. He's doing a lot of things right. And at the bottom here, you'll notice he's even using user-generated content. And he's responding. He's engaging with his own users. So does that mean that every blog post you do has to be 1,800 words and include all this stuff? No, but you should be moving in that direction. So if you're paying someone to write a 350-word blog post for you on a weekly basis because you think that's somehow going to help, stop. I'm going to just say stop. You're better off writing one, we call it long form post a month. Just do one a month. That's 1,500 words or more. And I guarantee you that will start to drive better results than 2, 3, 5, 15, 20 of these short posts that I see a lot of people do from a blogging perspective. Okay, so again, and I encourage you guys to check out Neil Patel and some of his content. But in terms of kind of framing content and articles, you definitely want to make it easy to read and integrate as many forms of media as you can. Okay, so now we're on the last step. So foundational SEO, keyword research, technical SEO, on-page SEO, and now off-page SEO. And by stacking this last piece, it's really helping us to dramatically improve our visibility online. So really it comes down to backlinks. And backlinks, it's kind of like we're back in high school. I know that brings up some really bad feelings for people. But we're about to play dodgeball and everybody's lining up and the captains have to pick their teams. And look, somebody's going to go first and somebody's going to be last. That's just the world we live in. So you want to choose your links carefully and your strategy carefully, because search engines see these backlinks as votes. And who are you getting a vote from? And you want to prioritize quality over quantity. I can't tell you how many times I have a customer call and say, hey, Mike, somebody wants to sell me 10,000 links to my website. Should I do it? And after I stop laughing, I say, no, you shouldn't do it, because I'd rather get one quality link than thousands and thousands of garbage links. So we have to be careful about it. We don't want to get penalized, but if someone asks, well, how do you do that? My answer is simple. Ask. We're all bellwethers. We're all out there. We're all doing things. We're trying to promote our services, our businesses, connect with other people. Ask. If someone asks you to write an article, say, can I include a link to my website? If someone's going to interview you on a podcast, say, great, when you post the show notes, can I link back to my website? If you do a video on YouTube, make sure in the description, you're linking back to your website. You're doing a social media post and saying, hey, everybody, I just did a new post on, my weekly blog post, link to the blog post, okay? And if you use that lens and that framework, the links will kind of take care of themselves. Now, to be fair, there are other tools we use as an agency with data aggregators and directories and other things. You don't need any of that if you are producing content. Just ask and make sure that links are being provided back to your website or blog. And again, think in terms of quality over quantity. This is not a game of numbers entirely, although one quality link is not going to make you an overnight success. It is a game of numbers over time, but in the short term, be more strategic, right? If you're an adjunct professor somewhere, great. On your school's website, post something with a link back to your website, because Google has really changed the game around links pretty dramatic. I do a whole presentation on link quality, domain authority, page authority. These are all factors we use to evaluate how good a link is. And at the end of the day, you want a variety of links. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of what should the link look like. Should it have HTTPS? Should it be www? None of that matters. None of that truly matters. What matters is, are you getting quality links from a diverse set of sources, .edu sites, .org sites, so on and so forth. And ideally, they should come from your niche, all right? So I know we're almost at the top of the hour, so I want to kind of wrap this up in a nice little bundle with kind of the story of bamboo. I'm sure many of you already know this story, but essentially bamboo grows unlike other plants. You plant the seed, and every day you got to go out, you got to water the bamboo, but you're basically watering a patch of dirt. And every day you got to go out there, pour the water, sun dries up, pour the water, sun dries up, on and on and on and on. And some people would get discouraged, right? After a few days going out there, not seeing a little seedling, not seeing anything starting to happen, it's like, well, this isn't working. But with bamboo, if you're consistent and you water it day after day after day, after a few months, within the period of a week, it shoots up. Literally, this is how bamboo grows. So I encourage you guys to Google it and learn more about it. SEO is oftentimes the same way. Now, I'm not saying this as a business owner. We're all bellwethers. Again, there's nothing to buy here. But most people use it as their only strategy, and they're waiting. It will work, but this is essentially how it works. So that's why it's always important, why I started with, in addition to organic, you want to supplement it with other methods. But once it hits, once it takes off, it has staying power if you do it the right way, which is by following these 5 steps. So follow the 5 steps: the foundational, keyword, technical SEO, on page and off page. Use tools. A lot of these tools are either free or have a free trial. We use Moz internally and SEMrush. I talked about Ubersuggest. We talked about building those assets. Again, if that's your only takeaway today, go and think about all those assets that you have that you can start to promote. And like I said, focus on some of the free stuff, especially around the foundational, like Google Business, Google Search Console. Those are all things that you can use to your benefit. And then amplify, right, with paid ads, with social. And then finally, slow and steady wins the race. Go out there, water for a few minutes every day, and consistently over time, you'll see some really huge results. All right, so my last thing is get in touch. in the spirit of abundance exchange, here's what I would like to do for each of you. And I can offer this because as an agency, I subscribe to all these tools. They're sunken costs, and some of them have some really cool features. So one of the features of Moz is I can take a URL, type it in, and hit enter, and it'll spit out a report for me. This is a technical SEO report, the benefit of which is it really helps to diagnose against best practices where your website stands and what you need to work on. So if you would like that, there's no cost, but there is some required information, like send me your name, your email, and your website URL. My VA is going to punch all of this into a spreadsheet and start to create these reports. And you can use that to get a jump on where do I start? What do I need to fix? How can I improve my website? And of course, if you guys need me, I'm in the Bellwether chat WhatsApp group. You can email me. You can hit me up on my mobile. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And with that, Michael G., I'm going to hand it back to you to see if there are any questions or anything you want to wrap with. Oh, Michael, you're on mute.
That was super fantastic. I'm sure everybody's SEO knowledge just went up about that much. But I love the way it was layman terms. I love the way that it was easy to follow and understand. Even if nobody knows anything about SEO, the tools are available and where to find them, what they are, what to Google and look for them. One thing that I took away, and maybe I cheated, I don't know, but I learned hashtags to be a huge way to be found as well, not only on social media, but also on your website. You can hide them in there, even though Google frowns on it a bit. But like my real estate company, a lot of people ask me, how do you find me? And I'm like, well, it all depends on what channel you're on, because all social media, website, all the different traffic, everyone has different ways to find it. So it was just one simple hashtag. Everybody could find it. And then they could figure out what radio station or social media platform they wanted to find it on. And I never thought about the email aspect of what you were talking about, so that was great. I know I'm a big advocate of Google likes Google. Google plays well with Google, and Google ranks Google. So if you're not using the G Suite or Google products for whatever reason or another, you may be getting penalized on that. But overall, I thought the presentation was super fantastic, and I will be reaching out to get the review of the Bellwether magazine site.
Perfect.
Anybody else have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands go up. Did he do that great a job?
Did an excellent job, Michael. Awesome.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so as well. Yeah, I thought it was a great job. Very layman terms, very easy to understand. And again, everybody's welcome to do this. One thing you notice with Michael's presentation, there was no ask, nothing to sell, all value. That's what we asked for. Hasina, I see you have your hand up.
Look, I wanted to get clarification. What was the name of the tool for the keyword research? You said Uber? What was the name of it?
Suggest. Yeah, I'll
Uber
put it in the
Suggest.
chat.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Michael, thank you very much for putting this on. I'm sure everybody took away a ton of value. I will be making this available. It might take me a day or two to get it to you, but everybody that was on this presentation will receive a copy of this so they can go back and review it at their leisure. But one more time, give everyone your contact information again, just in case they have any questions as they review this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Michael Fleischner at bigfinseo.com. And I'm dropping that in the chat. Feel free to reach out. Again, I've been doing this a long time, so hopefully I can save you a lot of time. And I'm also in the Bellwether WhatsApp group. So feel free to hit me up there and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Great, great. Amy, did you have a question? I see you unmuted up there.
Oh, I just wanted to say it just blew my mind. It was very amazing. And I actually am looking forward to watching the recording because I think I missed some stuff, but it was very, very helpful. So thank you very much.
It
Thanks,
seems
Amy.
like every Bellwether presentation is just value packed. You know, how do you take all this information in? But you know, it's just redoing it over and over and over and over again, whatever it is. It was great seeing you this weekend, Amy, and getting to know you a little better, and others on this call as well. So fantastic. So any more questions? Does anyone have a last minute?